It's Monday, October 28th, 2013. I'm Jimmy Principe.
I'm Sydney Foster.
And I'm Trey Comstock. Put in your final orders because this is Tech's Last Call, episode 47. Your last call for tech news of the week. Tonight, Jimmy has a lot to say about phone makers of yore. Sydney discusses tweeting undergarments. And I lose hope for the next generation. But we start tonight with Apple's march of incremental iteration introduced as innovation. So, Apple announced a lot of things at their October 22nd event. The iPad mini did get a Retina display, but also got a price hike up to $400, but did not get a launch date, with just a vague promise of later in November. The full-sized iPad got a redesign to look, oddly enough, more like the iPad mini, and a rechristening of as the iPad Air.
It's not 2002, Trey. Just let it go.
Yeah, okay.
No new iPods.
Then it would have been the iPad Nano, which was possibly the most interesting thing to come out of the event, or at least the most surprising thing.
Not that it was the iPad Nano. That was the iPad Air.
It was the iPad Air. It is drastically lighter, down by about 30% to 1 pound, and launches with an actual launch date of November 1st. No pre-orders again, just like they did with the iPhone 5S. Speaking of surprises, OS 10.9 Mavericks launched on Tuesday alongside the event and is free for anyone with a Mac going back to about 2007. I spent some time with it. It's not a huge upgrade, but their claim of better battery life seems to be panning out in the real world. And things seem to run faster, and there's some general smoothing things that are kind of nice. Also, iWork is now free for new Mac owners and has a Google Docs style online collaboration mode through its free iCloud version, which is interesting. In other news, the new trash can iPad
iPad,
Jesus.
really?
Yeah, look, man, too many things. The new trash can Mac Pros will launch later in December, without a date, for $3,000 base. Look, this has been the dominant story in most of the tech news cycle for about 6 days now. So I don't want to belabor this too much, but let's do highs and lows. What are you guys most excited about, and what was your biggest disappointment coming out of this event?
Go for it, Sydney.
Why?
So that's the low?
Well, not really being in the market for any of these products, it makes it difficult. I'll go with the whole iPad Air. That's pretty exciting and interesting. That first of all, they came up with something better than the new iPad.
The new iPad.
The new iPad. It's resolutionary. You're gonna love it.
But luckily this is not the new iPad, the iPad Air, which is not bad as far as the name goes. But then just in general, the idea that they were able to make it so much lighter is very cool, because of course that's a direction that we see a lot of our technology hopefully going, is thinner, lighter, faster.
Well, it was the big downfall of, in my opinion, the 9.7-inch iPad in general.
Right, it makes it a more usable as far as
holding it.
Yeah, right.
With one hand.
Standing up, standing up, a person who has to move around while carrying an iPad, as opposed to someone who's going to sit in the chair watching TV and playing games on their iPad. The actual productivity possibilities of the iPad are expanded with a smaller, well, not smaller, but a lighter iPad.
And they decreased the bezel size too, so it is a smaller device without sacrificing screen size.
Okay, so
what are you disappointed about?
Can they please just give us launch dates? I mean, because it just gets irritating after a while when we have to keep saying this thing is coming eventually.
Well, see,
coming soon.
This is interesting for Apple.
Maybe
Apple, unlike games companies, usually tells you exactly when it's going to launch when they announce, and so part of the story here is that the iPad mini Retina display does not have a release date, which has led folks like Leo Laporte to speculate that they still haven't figured out how to make these screens at enough volume yet. I mean, that was the thing.
Pixel density is kind of ridiculous.
Well, because it has the same resolution as the full-size iPad Air, but it is an inch smaller screen, inch and a half smaller screen. And so this is a really advanced display. It's the most advanced display that they're putting on the market by pixel density. And the speculation is they're having a hard time in the supply chain hammering this thing out, and that's why they can't give us a release date. And they think the rumor is there's going to be limited supply even when it does come out. So I think, Sydney, you've hit on one of the big stories here, is Apple is breaking with its usual trend of announcement and release date. Announcement and release date.
They kind of broke it a little bit last year with the iPad Mini LTE. They're coming. Just trust us.
Yeah,
but they did have a release date for the iPad Mini itself.
Right. This is twice this year they've done it.
Yeah, I think my high is probably the iPad Mini with Retina, because arguably it is the best iPad that's currently available. Well, available being a very loose term.
The best iPad we expect this year.
That has been announced.
That's why it irritates me.
Is that a fair statement?
I left off in introducing why the price hike. The new 64-bit A7 chip will be in both the iPad Mini and the iPad Air.
See, sometimes it is about specs.
So that's part of the story here. Go ahead.
It is the same motherboard as the iPhone 5S, the
iPad Air,
and the iPad Mini with Retina. They're all the same. So the iPad Mini with Retina, the form factor, it's a quarter of a pound lighter than the iPad Air. Mm-hmm. It's the best iPad on the market. However, $400.
Yeah,
I'm sorry, that's just ridiculous. $350, maybe. $330, which you introduced last year's iPad Mini at, definitely. But $400 when you're comparing that to the 7-inch Nexus 7 II, which is $229.
But I think at this point we just can't do that. That's not the game they're playing.
Right, but that's whether or not that's the game they want to be playing. They've never tried to play that game. The original, when they announced the iPad Mini last year, they were very clear to distinguish the fact that it was not a 7-inch tablet.
Right.
Partially because then they announced that it was $130 more than any 7-inch tablet. Well,
now it's
almost $200. Now, the 7-inch tablets went up in price when they bumped the specs on them. And don't get me wrong, the Nexus 7 has some significant, industrial design problems, and by that I mean it doesn't use Gorilla Glass, which is a real problem.
Well, it's part of how they're saving money.
And anyways, whatever. It has problems, but it's still a good device, and it will still get everything done. It has a high resolution screen, and it's Android, so if you're an iOS, but $400?
Yeah, I mean
and then the iPad, the current the previous generation iPad Mini only dropped to $300.
Some in the tech press have called that a healthy price drop. What do you think about that comment, Jimmy?
I've got specific places that those people can go, and I have suggestions of how they can get there.
Yeah, that's dumb. That is that's for a year-old device running an A5 processor, that's ridiculous. That thing should be $250.
Do you want to have another discussion like that? You know what else is selling for $400?
What's
the iPad 2?
Yeah.
The iPad 2. There have been 2 generations of iPads since the iPad 2.
3.
No,
the new iPad, the newer iPad, and
I'm not counting the I'm talking about as far as what would be the lower level device. So the logical one would be the 4th generation iPad, would be with the Lightning port.
Yeah.
I think that makes it so that the iPad 2 is the only iPad, or maybe even the only iOS device that Apple is selling that does not have.
I don't know. Are they still selling the old touches?
I know that they upgraded with the new when they did the 4-inch. They did the new touches. I think they still sell the old touches though. But other than the old touch, the old touch and the iPad 2 are the only two devices that still use the 30-pin connector. Which, although I hate Apple for its stupid Lightning connector, why when you already have an iPad 4, that almost tells me that they don't think that the new iPad Air is enough of a value proposition that they can charge $100 more than an iPad 4, or what they're trying to do is that by placing it at 400, the iPad 2 at $400, you go, wow, for only $100 more, I can get, the newest, greatest, best thing in the world.
I just don't understand why bother leaving that thing on the market. It doesn't.
They have warehouses full of it.
Yeah, I guess so. I guess that's it. I mean, for me, my business.
Well, the other thing is that one thing they never talked about at length is the third generation and fourth generation iPads are thicker and heavier than the iPad 2.
Yes, they are. Not by much. It's marginally.
It's a fraction of a millimeter and a fraction of a pound.
But still, it's
they're
heavier.
thicker and heavier, and they never talked about it.
Right. So for me, I think my highlight is the making Mavericks free. I think this is a way to hit back at Windows. I think this is a way to kind of start to standardize that experience a little more. OS 10 hadn't been suffering from a huge amount of fragmentation, but I have, 3 Macs here, and at one point they were running 3 different operating systems. So for me, I was really excited to see that going free. I'm also excited about the collaboration you can now do in iCloud, because that means Keynote, which is the only good part of iWork. It is. But it means you can build those good-looking presentations online collaboratively, because you know what's crap? Google Docs' version of PowerPoint. It's terrible.
That thing is just a piece of junk.
And so now you have a really powerful, arguably the best presentation software on the market. I don't use it much, but when I do, I'm like, this is better than PowerPoint.
I like PowerPoint.
I like PowerPoint okay, but I
also like, what's that other one, the web-based one? I can't remember what it's called.
Prezi,
that's what it is.
Yeah, but I think
when used well, it's different.
I think Prezi's doing almost an entirely different thing.
It is.
I'm excited about the Mac Pros, but that's just me. The video editor in me is like, yes, power.
They can take their Mac Pro and just shove it.
Since you hit kind of my biggest disappointment, which is the $400 price tag on the iPad Mini, my second biggest disappointment is the lack of true upgradability in the Mac Pro. And we've talked about this before, but it's a little insane. That's my other big
negative.
It's a little insane. I mean, they put 6 Thunderbolt ports on that thing, and it's Thunderbolt 2.0. Mm-hmm.
How much does a 3 terabyte Thunderbolt drive cost? Desktop, not mobile.
Roughly speaking, $300.
Okay, so
$260 on Amazon.
I can put a Western Digital Caviar Black drive, 3 terabyte, for $130.
Right, and that's the problem, right? So the only way to expand storage really is to hook in a Thunderbolt drive, and you're not sacrificed speed. At this point, Thunderbolt 2 is as fast as SATA, so fine. Technically, in an engineer's mind, fine, but the price difference is ludicrous.
Also, it's not actually as clean of a solution, because you're now going to have you're going to have 6 hard drives stacked on your desk instead of having them inside the computer.
Right. Well, I mean, you just have a giant external enclosure.
No, that's actually, that is what you do.
And
but
the C hard drive that we're both actually talking about has like a rack you can buy so you can stack multiple of them. Don't look, man. I don't know what to tell you. But the idea is that it's upgradable by a Thunderbolt, and technically that's true, but that's a little false advertising because the pricing is just not effective at all. But another company with some possibly interesting pricing models is Nokia, and they also had an event on October 22nd.
To be fair, theirs was announced before Apple.
Yes, because they were in Dubai.
They were in Abu Dhabi, Dubai. Nokia, the maker of the impressive text last call favorite Lumia 1020, Trey, do you have the beautiful
Yeah.
phone to model for the
Yeah,
ladies
if
and
you're on the
gentlemen?
video version, you can. I am holding up. For those of you on the audio version, I am holding up my Lumia 1020.
It's beautiful, and you can
it's
also
great.
see what time we recorded. It says it on the screen. Anyways, they announced 3 new Lumia devices as well as a bunch of Asha devices at this event. The first was what every Windows Phone fanboy has been waiting for, including Trey,
Uh-huh.
a
Say it.
phablet.
A phablet.
Oh,
Phablet.
the word just makes me cringe.
So it's
It
called a
should.
Lumia. It's called the Lumia 1520, and it's by far the most spec impressive Windows Phone ever.
Tell
it has
me
a
more.
6-inch display, 1080p.
Yes.
It has a 2.2 gigahertz quad-core Snapdragon processor, so that'd be the same one that's in the LG G2, and is supposed to be in the Nexus 5 when it comes out.
Which is basically a reskinned G2.
Right, and it also has a 20 megapixel pure view camera, so not
Not bad.
quite the ridiculousness of the 1020, but almost.
But if I understand the cost savings there, and they're still doing something interesting.
Yeah, and it's totally worth it. It's also a smaller physical sensor. But anyways, also probably the most exciting software enhancement that they have. They have the 3 rows of tiles because it's a 6-inch screen, Windows Phone 8 and stuff. But
Windows Phone 8 in requiring the GDR3 upgrade, which actually allows for these larger screens, allows for this more flexibility and resolution, and allows for 3 tiles wide.
And so, but other than that, the most exciting software enhancement is the ability to capture images in the RAW format.
Cool.
Which is a feature that's associated with semi-pro and pro devices, with pro cameras. And that update will also be rolling out to the Lumia 1020, I think in the first quarter of next year. The Lumia 1520 will be available in fourth quarter 2013. We don't have a specific launch date, unfortunately. And it
Or
will
a
cost
carrier.
$739 off contract. Yes, because we don't have carrier pricing either. Now, the interesting thing is it has a Qualcomm chip in it, so it probably will support that one device will support multiple carriers, both CDMA and GSM.
Yeah, it'll support the multi-band.
It'll have the same thing that the
Qualcomm
S4
radio.
has and the HTC One has. So there's no reason why it can't be on every carrier, other than they're stupid and they like to lock themselves down to AT&T. So in other news, they also announced another 6-inch phone that's less powerful. It's $339 and it's coming in Q1 2014. No one really cares about that.
Let's be clear. Since I already bought the 1020, that may be the device I care about.
Yeah, it's 720p, does stuff. $339 off contract. So it's going to be probably a $50 on contract device.
For a phablet. For a
phablet.
Windows Phone phablet that will do most...
It has a 5 megapixel camera, has a dual core 1.7 gigahertz processor, Snapdragon processor. So it'll be an interesting device. It's just not
It's just not the
as
sexy.
compelling as the 1520.
Yeah.
So moving on to what we actually want to talk about, which is the biggest announcement. Nokia's foray into the tablet market, the 10.1-inch Lumia 2520. Running, let's be clear, Windows RT 8.1. It's available for $449, and it includes basically the same thing as the 1520. It's the same motherboard, people, with a less impressive camera of only 6.7 megapixels, because all of the people that take pictures with their tablets can all go to hhell. I'm sorry.
Even the new iPads basically told them to go to hell because they didn't change the camera much.
I know they didn't change it at all.
Stop
because
taking pictures with your tablet. Just
take it with your
stop.
phone.
Silly.
Your phone probably has a better camera, anyways.
You look insane.
Yeah, Nokia also announced this $150 keyboard attachment that wraps around and also provides additional battery life. They say it'll add 5 hours of battery life. And
So like the power cover.
Yeah, basically. And they're claiming 11 hours of battery life on the device. So it should actually be quite respectable with that. Oh, yeah, and they all are just in lots of colors. All the colors that Nokia has been known for. So like the yellow and the black and there's like a red and whatever. So Trey, as the proud owner of a Windows Phone and a Lumia 1020 at that, do any of these devices get you excited, or is it just more of the same vomit of color from Nokia?
Look, honestly, I kind of wish that the 1520 existed a month and a half ago. Jimmy, what you guys don't know is Jimmy and I had this debate all summer. What are they going to announce in August, September versus what are they going to launch later in the fall? I needed to buy a phone in August. I was really glad that at least the Nokia 1020 existed. But what I was really waiting for was the rumored Nokia phablet.
Partly because really afraid that they were just not going to announce anything of any value in August, and that they were going to push both the 1020 and the 1520 to this event.
Right. And so luckily, like, I love my 1020, and I've been down on phablets, and I have very, very small hands. This has been discussed on the show before. I'm a baby hands man. And so I have been kind of down on this phablet thing. But I thought it would be interesting to try both a phablet and a Windows Phone at the same time. So I would have bought the 1520 had it been on the market a month and a half ago. But it wasn't, and I like my 1020.
And that thing's a beast.
Wait, it's a great
1520.
The 1520 is a great phone. What I'd almost be waiting is what it'll be, the 1040 or whatever they're going to call it, that brings this motherboard into.
It'll be the 1120.
The 1120 or whatever that brings this.
Following their numbering scheme.
The numbering scheme makes no sense.
That brings this form factor, this motherboard into with the 43 megapixel sensor, and I think that would almost be the device to beat in terms of phones. This is to me the 1520 is in the running for the best device that's been announced this year. It really does get me excited. It's the right combination of the software's there, the hardware's there. It's made by Nokia. It's not going to be a gimmick. It doesn't have any stupid pens that no one wants, and I like this device.
So, Sydney, my question for you is, you have a Surface.
Mm-hmm.
Is there anything about a Surface RT for that? Mm-hmm. Is there anything about this Nokia tablet thing that's, would tempt you over a Surface if you had to go back and do it again?
Good question.
It's colorful.
It is colorful.
It has that exact same design language as the Lumias have had.
Yeah, it looks like a Lumia, which is, I think it's cool. It differentiates. You can look at a Surface and know it's a Surface, and you can look at a Lumia 1520 and know that those are different devices. Unlike a lot of the Android ones where I'm like, huh? Is that
they all look the same. All the Android ones look the same.
Or the Acer or the Asus or the other garbage?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
I don't know.
Well, I think...
Do you like it?
I don't know enough about it to really have much of an opinion on it, I must say.
I guess that's fair.
I mean, I don't know. It's a tablet.
Well,
it also has Windows 8.1.
Beyond design,
what's the big difference?
Beyond design language, the Surface runs a Tegra processor. This runs a Qualcomm. Whoosh. I mean that.
It's the sound of all of your words going above my head.
Yes, thank you. I understand that, but that if you want the differences, that's it.
The difference really distills down as far as what they offer you. By having the Qualcomm processor in the Lumia 2520, they're able to offer LTE right out of the box. So you can, for $499, you get the LTE tablet. And so you can then theoretically, because it has that chip, it can be activated on Verizon or AT&T. Whereas with the Tegra chip, they'd have to put in a special things in order to make it work with the LTE networks, and it would cost more money.
Which they've yet to do at all.
So that's a big differentiator as far as the Lumia 2520 versus the Surface 2. One's plastic and one's metal too. That's another differentiator.
Also, I mean, what's interesting is this is now cheaper in two ways than the competitive iPad. Right, to do an iPad this way with 32 gigabytes of storage and LTE on board, you would pay $730.
Right, you can buy this with the keyboard case for less than that.
Right. I mean, I think this is this and the Surface both, but especially this since it has LTE baked in. That's a huge deal. This is, we're going to talk about the next round of Surfaces up next, but based on that, which I hadn't realized, this is the tablet to beat. Nokia has released two very killer devices here.
Well, it's also, I think that the color is going to play well.
Yeah, sure.
No, but
I don't
You
argue.
you walk up in Best Buy. Now, part of the problem is that Best Buy has made a deal with the devil, and they have Apple and Samsung separate things inside
But they also
their
have the
stores.
Windows experience now.
True, but you walk up to a bunch of tablets. This thing will be colorful, whereas all the rest of them will be really boring gray slates. So I think that will catch your eye and draw you to it and to look at it. Now, you might not buy it because of that, but it'll catch your attention. It's like how they make all the screens blue on TVs because it looks better in the store.
Speaking of slightly boring gray slates, Microsoft released new Surfaces.
Aw, so sad.
Poor Microsoft.
Well, not poor Microsoft, but they changed the color to a worse gray.
Yes,
That's very true.
that is very true. So new iPads may be in the works, but the new Surfaces are already here. So Microsoft launched the new Surface 2s and Surface 2 Pros on October 22nd. Very popular day.
Midnight on October 22nd.
Indeed.
Almost in line with the Nokia announcement.
Yeah, so to admittedly small midnight release crowds because they just don't have that crazy Apple fanboys. Go figure. But for relatively warm critical reception. So, you don't get the lines, but overall, people are feeling pretty positive about Surfaces. Now, Microsoft certainly didn't reinvent the wheel with the Surfaces, so you're not going to say, oh my gosh, this is a whole new thing, a whole new ball game. But we definitely got some very solid upgrades. So both devices feature a more adjustable kickstand. The kickstand now has 2 different settings, which supposedly makes it easier for you to use the device on your lap, although that's, as a Surface owner myself, not something I ever had a problem with. But then again, I think I've pretty much decided that I'm the only person in the world who is happy with the original Surface. So go figure. And then each of the new Surfaces also got processor upgrades, so faster, good things like that.
The Nokia
Tegra
Tegra 4.
On the Surface 2 and the Haswell processor on
the
Surface Pro.
the Core i5
we've kind of
Haswell.
run this down and in shows past as well, as far as all the
Because we
details.
love Surface.
Yes, we do. I love Surface. I will stand by it. So the Surface 2, formerly known as Surface RT, has better front and back cameras, which is excellent because the camera is pretty darn crappy. But again, see previous comment about tablet picture taking. And then it also got a better looking display. So essentially the Surface 2 now has the same display as the Surface Pro 2.
Yeah.
So significant
Hooray.
upgrades for the display, and it looks prettier. The Pro, the real big change is the new processor, which is better battery life, makes it faster. As far as the design, like Trey said, really the main noticeable change in the design language is the awful new color of the Surface 2.
Well, they made the mistake of it's now two-toned. The back is like a light gray, and the front is like jet black. I hate it when companies do that. It's so effing lazy.
It's not even a nice gray.
No.
So, and then the Surface Pro 2 really just doesn't look very different at all from the original Surface Pros. But so I know Trey and I have had a chance to go hands-on with the new Surface, and so what were your impressions, Trey?
The screen difference, they've moved to a full 1080p display on the Surface RT, the Surface 2. It's noticeable, particularly in web browsing. The text is much smoother. It's a little brighter. It looks nicer. The jarring thing for me, and I guess I'm always the advocate for design here, but just that two-tone thing was shockingly ugly. It's just ugly.
And I really liked the magnesium coating that they did on the original. Vapomag, thank you. That they did on the original Surface RT. I thought that they really nailed it on that, and so I think it was weird that they kind of redid it.
Yeah.
For the Surface 2.
Yeah,
I
it
don't
almost
think that makes much sense.
It gives you just the feeling of they felt like we have to make this look different somehow, so people will think that we've made changes.
It's like how car companies used to have colors that were only available in certain years.
Sure.
So that,
Well, they still have that. I couldn't buy my Subaru Crosstrek in green because that's only available in the hybrid model. That isn't out yet. Like, it's dumb.
That's because it's a hybrid.
Look, it's
people
still-
that drive hybrids
Is
are
it
green.
Yes, but the other Subaru products are available in green, just not the Crosstrek, which is the first one to get the hybrid. So it's
That's why, because they need to
Look,
give
it's
you a
dumb.
reason to buy the hybrid.
But my overall point with this design thing is, if they had made the front also this kind of slate
Ugly gray?
I would have been happier with it. It's
Happier, still
I
not
wouldn't
happy
be
though.
still not happy, but this two-tone thing just makes it worse. Also, they changed the kickstand, so now there's two different angles of kick
I
out.
like that.
I liked it too. It means there's now an angle that's much more like how I would have my laptop sit on my lap normally. It's not a huge difference. They improved incrementally on what we gave our device of the year last year. And I think
and
we
the
stand by it.
kickstand thing may be something that if I actually had it, I would realize, oh, this is an improvement. Looking at it in the store, I was like, okay, that's nice. But again, it's one of those, I'm used to what I have, and maybe if I had something better, then I would realize that it's better. So maybe that's.
I had to laugh because when they announced the 2-position kickstand, because I remember on launch day going and looking at the Surface and the very nice Microsoft employee telling me that all I ever needed in the world was 22.5 degrees.
Well, I mean, that was part of their sales pitch.
That was the magic.
We
It was
have done
22.5 degrees.
the
I was like, well,
ergonomics research that this is all you need.
I was
And
like, but what about? They're like, no, 22.5 degrees.
it turns out you need a slightly more oblique angle for lap use. And I don't think they considered it being used on the lap, which is kind of funny.
Because it's Microsoft. Everyone works at a desk. And
No matter how cool we pretend to be, it's still a bunch of business people. The other big story here is obviously now the Surface Pro has real battery life.
has Haswell processors and does
And
real
then
things.
I didn't really bring up at all, but all the accessories.
Yeah, we've talked about it before. None of those are out yet, except they just have new type covers and touch covers. The power cover and the dock are not out yet.
The dock is really what I want. I
I've
know
seen
that I
it.
can just do it with a USB hub, Tom Merritt.
I've seen it, and it integrates well with the device. They have one at the Microsoft store here in
Kind
Atlanta.
of makes it look like a spaceship, though.
Yeah, or like that Tobisha
awesome.
desktop from '97. Just shrunk down a little bit. As much as things changes, everything stays the same. There's only so much you can do with black plastic, as it turns out. But no, the real battery life on the Surface Pro 2, we've been talking about it for a while, but I think the Haswell
It's
processors, it kind of makes it the Windows laptop to have, in many ways. And really now it's an RT shootout between the Surface Pro 2, the Surface 2, and the Lumia 2520. And right now, for design language,
It's not a shootout, though. I think I think you're wrong. I think it's actually they're both trying to capture market share independently of each other. They're not stealing from each other.
I don't know.
That market is so small that all they can do is hope that by introducing the Lumia, that is fundamentally different than
fundamentally better.
Well, it's fundamentally better. I'll agree with you on that. But I think that its target marketing is very different from that of the Surface 2. And so as a result of that, I think that they will draw different crowds.
I mean, here's hoping. RT is doing better in terms of app support. It's still not there. It's a good operating system, and kind of the trajectory we're seeing, it's going to start melding with Windows Phone into one operating system. And I think that's the big hope. That right now, Microsoft, unlike the other players in this game, have 3 separate operating systems. One for phones, one for ARM-based tablets, and one for PCs.
Right.
Whereas Apple and Android, or Apple and Google, have a desktop operating system and a mobile operating system.
Well, that's because Google killed their tablet specific operating system when they killed Honeycomb.
But it was still a fork of Android.
No, it was still Android, but Honeycomb
Was the tablet
not,
specific one?
It was tablet specific.
Yeah.
And the apps were tablet specific. They've tried to get away from that, but
Sure. Speaking of something that might run on those tablet-specific apps, times they are changing in the land of premium video. Bloomberg reports that Netflix may have surpassed HBO in terms of subscribers. Netflix reported as part of their very positive earnings that they have grown to 31.1 million subscribers. Now, HBO does not release official subscriber counts, but according to Needham & Co., an analyst in this area, HBO has 28.7 million subscribers. If Reed Hastings of Netflix is to believe, in a few years, Netflix will be running laps around HBO. Netflix is going to continue to double down on original content, which is part of how they got there. They have a few documentaries in the work. They're also currently spending only about 10% of their budget on original content, as opposed to HBO, which spends about 40% of their total on original content. So there's some room in there. HBO may be looking for a way to fight back, though. Comcast is now offering a bundle where you can get internet, stream picks, Comcast's Netflix competitor, HBO, including HBO, and basic cable for $40 a month as an introductory price, and then $70 a month as an ongoing price. So with this sea change, does HBO stand a chance against Netflix?
yes, I think that Netflix will. I think that Netflix's success in the mobile space, especially now that they're going into HBO's territory of high quality original content, I think that Netflix might end up being more dominant than HBO in the future as far as subscribers.
Sure.
But I think that it's really going to push HBO to consider cutting some of the ties that they have with the cable companies.
Yeah, I think that makes sense.
Because if Netflix is doing it without cable, because there's definitely demand for HBO content.
Sure.
And so if Netflix is able to do it without cable company support, in fact, anti-cable company support, then...
You say that. I mean, there's talk this week that Netflix may start being integrated in with cable services.
No, that's true. But in the past, things like Stream Picks, for example, instead of integrating Netflix, have been the solution to just kind of stick it to Netflix and say, we don't need you. We can do it ourselves. And turns out they can't. So yeah. I think that HBO needs to evaluate their business model and decide whether or not they want to keep with this locked in with the cable companies thing, or whether they want to just do an about face and be more like Netflix. Well, Reed Hastings has said that his goal is to become more like HBO faster than HBO can become like Netflix.
Yeah, and I think that's what you're seeing, right? Netflix has already made a huge foray into original content. The HBO Go app is well regarded, and the people who have it love it, and the people who don't have it find a way to cheat and get it. I have no idea what you're talking about, Trey.
No,
but everyone's like, oh, my parents have it, or my brother has HBO, and so I just use his account. Well, that's dumb. In HBO, I mean, clearly there's demand.
That's lost revenue.
No, clearly there's a demand for a standalone HBO app, independent from the cable companies. I think HBO has just done the profit and loss, and right now they're still making too much money off their model because they charge ridiculous money and people pay it. And in the online streaming world, you don't pay those ridiculous prices. You have basically unlimited content for $8 a month. Imagine if that was the only subscription you needed was $8 a month. I mean, Netflix.
That's the only video subscription I pay for.
Right, and it's a tremendous. I pay for that, and I pay $5 a month for Giant Bomb, but that's an entirely different thing. I get a lot of value out of that $5 a month. But Netflix is the best deal in town. Their content is great. I think eventually it's clear HBO is headed towards a standalone cable company independent subscription, and this Comcast deal is the first step towards that because it's the most watered down cable package possible, plus HBO for reasonable money if you break those things out individually.
I'd be curious how fast the internet is, because that's kind of what I'm paying
25
right now.
megabits per second.
Okay, I have
25.
double that speed. but
Right. But,
we can all debate whether or not I need it. But
right, but what I'm saying is that's not crazy low either for the U.S.
no,
anyways.
that's real. That's real internet with real streaming options for a reasonable price.
Right. And so HBO Go would be totally usable on that. And a lot of times there's packages anyways where it just makes sense to have basic cable and internet because to get internet without basic cable costs more. Because of, especially with the digital TV transition, like that's just what makes sense. But someone else who has not transitioned nearly as well is BlackBerry and their BlackBerry Messenger service. Tell me more about this, Jimmy.
So a few weeks ago, a struggling company known as BlackBerry released their messaging service BBM to iOS and Android, and things went really well right up until the service crapped itself, causing the parent company, BlackBerry, to pull it.
Womp, womp, womp.
Well, have no fear, because BBM has made its triumphant return to the App Store on both iOS and Android. BlackBerry has invented a very clever solution to this problem by implementing a, quote, line, where you are given the opportunity to download the app on a first-come, first-served basis. It's very clever. I think it's going to catch on. Apple might try it. BlackBerry says that a whopping 6 million people, that's with an M, signed up for their for information on BBM at bbm.com, which is approximately equal to half the population of Ontario, Canada, where they are based. In addition, previous Apple CEO John Sculley, who had such successes as firing Steve Jobs in the 80s, is, according to unnamed sources at the Globe, considering a joint bid with Canadian investors to buy BlackBerry. So, do we think that this BBM thing is a viable candidate in the market, or is this, for lack of a better term, shenanigans?
Well, it depends how you define viable. Is it a viable...
I thought you were going to say, it depends on how you define shenanigans.
That's what I was expecting as well.
It depends how you define viable. Is it viable to keep BlackBerry in its current form alive? Hell no. Is it a viable chat service alongside things like WhatsApp? Yes. It's a fully functional cross-platform messenger. So yeah, it is viable software. Abso-freaking-lutely. But it's not... a viable business model for a company of the device division.
Oh, the other fun fact about 6 million people is that's 1/6 of the population of Canada.
Great, and all of BlackBerry's users are there, I guess.
So we had a lot of really good jokes at BlackBerry's expense in the pre-show, but in all seriousness, BBM...
BlackBerry, everywhere you don't want to be. BlackBerry, partying like it's 2005.
No, BlackBerry boldly going where everyone went 5 years ago.
Yeah.
BlackBerry is just a mess, but BBM is probably the only valuable part of the company that's not just straight up hardware manufacturing.
No, I mean, their security stuff, their enterprise level stuff has
value. By that, I
to
mean,
it.
because BBM is a chat service that has enterprise level security. And
yeah, but part of that's also integrated BlackBerry server. Like, there's the software aspect of that company is what's valuable.
Right. The phones are worthless, but the software is what's valuable. So I think that this is BlackBerry trying to establish that BBM is worth something. So when they sell, they get more money. And I think it would be hilarious for John Sculley to head up another fruit company.
Yeah, or just drive another fruit company into the ground.
Yeah, I mean, what was he? He was Pepsi before Apple.
Yeah. Pepsi before Apple.
Just stick to your, Pepsi One or whatever, and you'll be fine.
No more fruit.
Just no more fruit.
Ooh, someone should send John Sculley to the world of crack. I mean, Coke.
God, it's such a terrible place. Something else that is somewhat of a terrible place is this week's gadget. Play. Don't do that to me. So I had an opportunity this week. The Xbox One nationwide tour was in Atlanta on Thursday, Friday, Saturday, and Sunday. And so after I went late in the evening on Thursday, and so that I would have plenty of space to try out all of the latest Xbox One games. And so I got to go hands-on with the hardware. I have handled the controller. I have played Rise, Son of Rome, Forza 5, Dead Rising 3, and Kinect Sports Rivals. And my short editorial piece on that is I'm waiting to be impressed. What I saw there made me unsure about the next generation. I had to come home and play Forza 4 on the Xbox 360 just to remind myself that the Xbox One's graphics are indeed better. Now, they didn't have me playing in optimal circumstances. I was sitting 6 inches from a screen, which is no way to play a 1080p game. Those are designed for the 10-foot experience, not the less than a foot experience.
They should have had an iPad Mini Retina.
Yeah, you're just not pushing enough pixels for that to make sense. Dead Rising 3 looked like there was a weird filter over it that made it look worse.
Instagram?
It looked like it was the game looked Instagrammed. It was not good.
Dead Rising Instagram edition.
Dead Rising Instagram edition. Rise, Son of Rome was graphically very nice. The camera is fundamentally broken, and so like you can end up behind things and unable to see your character in a third-person game, which I thought we'd solved with the original Assassin's Creed like a long time ago, and possibly GTA solved before that. The graphics look good, but they don't look, nothing went... I didn't sit there and go, wow, we have arrived in a new era. This is not like the jump from the PlayStation 1 to the PlayStation 2, or from the Xbox to the Xbox 360. This is just didn't look that different.
Right. You say that, though, and I'd say the jump of the Xbox to the Xbox 360 and the PS2 to the PS3, at the time, the games were not fully taking advantage of the hardware. And I remember being told, oh, yeah, they're so much better graphics, da-da-da-da-da. And I went in and I played these games, and I went, I guess if I look really hard, it's better. I mean... But you look here 8 years later, and the graphics that they're pushing out of these consoles, and yes, the graphics are a lot better, but it's whether or not the game makers are actually taking advantage of them.
But I also wonder how much of it is just at this point the law of diminishing returns, right? When you went from sprites to polygons, that was a big deal.
The BioShock Infinite problem.
Right. It's how much further the differences start. The further you get, the closer you get to realism, the subtler the differences are, right? And so, like in Forza, you can now see the textures of the cloth on the headliner in the car.
That's awesome.
That is awesome, right? But the draw distance is broken. And again, this is not final hardware. These are not final versions of the game, as the Microsoft representatives kept explaining to me. And I kept looking at them and going,
yeah, but they better go fast.
I kept looking at them going, what the hell is this? This game ships in 3 weeks. Like, what are you doing? What are you doing? Also, load times. Again, these are demos, but like one of the arguments for this generation is, it'll end the load time as we know it. The load time was still there, and they were pretty bloody awful. The controller feels good in the hand, feels a little more plasticky or a little flimsier plastic. I do like the new sticks. Steven, who's our part-time gaming correspondent who went with me, did not like the buttons as well. I was fine with the buttons. There's supposed to be this cool rumble effect in the triggers where it's hard to explain, but they have individual motors for the triggers, and the rumble does feel better. Like when I was making a hard braking maneuver in Forza, I felt the ABS pulse rather than just a set like generic rumble. I've actually felt the ABS go blip, 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 blip. That was pretty cool. The Kinect is a lot better. I told the Microsoft rep that I was working with that like the biggest thing I noticed was the Kinect works this time. Like it does. Like I couldn't believe it.
As opposed to being this weird,
makes it even
add-on.
sadder that they're de-emphasizing it.
The thing that I am least excited about for this generation of hardware was the thing I was most excited about walking out of there. When I played Kinect Sports Rivals, I just walked into frame, it picked me up right away, and I could do subtle motions, and there was no like, wave to calibrate. None of that BS. So I'm left with this feeling of, what are we excited about? These games look like they're all right. Rise Son of Rome is in fact going to be crap. I was the only person in the world excited about it, and I think it's just going to be crap. Forza 5 looks like a great game if they can solve that draw distance issue in the next 3 weeks. Which, who knows how old this build was. It wasn't dated. I don't know. Dead Rising 3 looks like another Dead Rising game. But I don't know. I'm left with, what are we buying? And, the launch lineup for the Xbox One is better than the PS4, but it doesn't include...
but that's like saying it's better than crap, though.
Yeah, exactly. It's better than nothing.
It's basically crap.
Basically crap.
So basically the moral of the story is Nintendo's having a really good day.
The moral...
I don't know if I'd go
The
there.
moral of the story is the PS3 is having a really good year. Because, the best titles to have this year are all on the PS3. Kind of my walk away, my take-home point from this is, honestly, the case of the next generation will not truly be made until Titanfall and Destiny launch next year. Those are the big case, right? Because those are
make or break the console.
Those are going to make or break the consoles. Those are the leaps forward in terms of what the world can do, in terms of the online integration, in terms of the graphics, in terms of the numbers of things happening on screen, all of that. The real purpose for the next generation is encapsulated, I guess, in Watch Dogs 2, but in Watch Dogs, Titanfall, and Destiny. Until those, it's only for us early adopters to feel like we have to buy something that really make this generation worthwhile. Because you look at that thing, you see what's on screen and go, yeah, that's good, but it's not a whole lot better than like GTA 5 or Bioshock Infinite or Beyond Two Souls. It's just not.
Fair.
So yeah, I mean, that's my thoughts on the Xbox One. Do y'all have anything? I know y'all didn't get to go hands-on, but thoughts, comments?
I agree.
Excellent.
Huzzah!
Huzzah. And PS4s should be at GameStop locations within the next few weeks, so we'll be able to go hands-on with them also before the actual release of the console. I did go ahead and cancel my pre-order.
I did not.
So, I guess it's time to plug. We will be doing live streams of each of the consoles as they release, starting about 1 a.m. On each of the respective release days. So at 1 a.m. Central on November 15th, we will be live with a 6-hour PS4 live stream. And then live at 1 a.m. Eastern on November 22nd, we will be live with an Xbox One 6-hour live stream. So check those out, and we'll continue to plug them in case you forget. But speaking of the PS4 launch, Jimmy, you have something to share with the class.
Yes. So I went into GameStop on Friday, as I have a tendency to do, because I wanted to buy the original Assassin's Creed because I was getting nostalgic. And lo and behold,
Assassin's Creed 4 launched an hour ago.
Yeah, or 25 minutes ago for me. But lo and behold,
we didn't get T-shirts this year.
I know.
The DualShock 4 controller was available. The guy at GameStop looked at me and goes, "Oh, you pre-ordered this controller. Do you want to pick it up now?" Like, sure, why not?
That makes sense.
I have a DualShock 4 controller. As you can see, it's very similar to a DualShock 3. I cannot tell if these are in frame.
This is a plug for the video version.
So yes, these probably the biggest difference is the triggers, which are better. Like they're just better. I got to use it a little bit on GTA 5. I used the PS, or I guess the DualShock 4 controller.
So the DualShock 4 controller has some functionality with the PS3?
Yes, you have to be hardwired into it. It uses a micro USB cable instead of a mini USB cable like the PS3 controller does, or the DualShock 3 controller does. It's limited. It depends on the game. There's lots of caveats, but it kind of works. Let's see. The shape is a little different. As you can see.
Describe it for the audio.
It's
viewers.
got. I don't know how to describe the bump outs for the left and right triggers are not as significant as they are on the DualShock 3 controller. There's these significant bump outs for the left and right trigger buttons, whereas on the DualShock 4 controller, it's pretty flush. As a result of that,
it's also just wider because of the touchscreen.
Yeah, there's a small touchscreen in the center,
touchpad.
Similar to like what's on the back of the
Vita.
The Vita. It's got a soft touch back. It's kind of textured. It's not soft touch. It's textured. It's instead of the shiny plastic that's the back of
nice.
the DualShock 3 controller. It's a nice design touch. In general, I'd say it's more comfortable to hold than this stupid DualShock 3 controller that I have tolerated for years, and it's fine. They also added indents on the analog sticks, which solves the problem of your finger falling off. Which is similar to which controller, Trey? What did you keep telling me while I was talking about this?
So when we get into controllers, I always bring up the basic point that the modern controller started with the GameCube.
You hold that one up. I'll hold this one up.
So
this is the Xbox 360 controller that I'm holding for all of you on the video version.
Which, Xbox essentially looked at what Nintendo was doing with, the GameCube controller and did that. Offset sticks, A, B, X, Y buttons, all of that.
D-pads in the same place.
The offset sticks. But also, going back to the PS4 controller story, there's this textured thing to make sure that your finger doesn't flip.
To the left,
slip.
Trey.
What was that?
Go to the left.
There
You
we
can't
go.
see it on the video. Yep.
So there's this textured thing to make sure your finger doesn't slip off of the thumbstick. So Jimmy, what's there now?
Yeah, there's this. It's a small ridge along the outside of the DualShock 4 controller that allows it so your finger doesn't fall off, which is a significant problem with the DualShock 3 controller. So yeah, it's better. It is a noted improvement. It's more comfortable to hold. I'm really excited for seeing what this thing for the eye camera on the front of it will do. But we'll have to wait 3 weeks to find out what that'll do.
Yeah,
I guess 2.5 at this point. So.
2.5. So join us in 2.5 weeks on November 15th at 1 a.m. Central for the live stream of death. Live stream of Next Generation.
Awesome.
Speaking of death, is
And
this
awesome.
week's Space.
Space, the final frontier.
So we've talked many times before about the future of space exploration and the space industry, and one group of extraterrestrial objects that tends to come up a lot when we're talking about space is asteroids. We talk about exploring them, we talk about mining them, we talk about harnessing them, capturing them, keeping them from obliterating us.
Details.
Many things about asteroids. Well, our good friends in Japan have come up with a new tool to aid in the future of asteroid research. And to quote Chris from the TV show Sons of Guns, it's a cannon!
It's
So
what?
excited. It's a
That's
cannon.
didn't it?
So the Japan Aerospace Exploration Agency has successfully tested an asteroid cannon, essentially, which will be hitching a ride to asteroid 1999 JU3. Asteroids have such really boring names.
I'm guessing it was discovered in 1999.
It seems to be the naming convention. But this is an asteroid that orbits between Earth and Mars. And the purpose of the cannon is that it essentially will launch a 4-pound projectile into the surface of the asteroid, which will create debris that will then be collected by an asteroid probe. And this one is called Hayabusa 2. My great Japanese there. And then the debris will be brought back to Earth for study. So with this particular asteroid, 1999 JU3, it's relatively unchanged as far as scientists can tell since the early days of the solar system. So they're hoping to find water and organic material from way back when, just to give us a better idea of how planets are initially formed and really nifty stuff like that. So cannons in space. Really.
So what you're telling me is that the Chinese brought cannons to Europe in the Middle Ages, and the Japanese are bringing cannons to space.
Yes.
Cannons to space.
Yeah.
Cannons.
Okay.
Cannons in space for scientific purposes. And
No, they just want to shoot cannons at asteroids.
no, it's totally legit science. Science is awesome.
Well, it is awesome. I'm not sure I totally understand the difference between this and a rocket. In terms of effectiveness, but
There's an explosion involved.
sure, there's an controlled explosion. All a rocket is a controlled explosion.
This explosion launches a projectile.
Yeah.
So, here's a question I have. What is Japan limited to on as far as satellites and rockets and things like that? Because I know that they had some limitations after World War II. So most of those people re-signed up whatever their limitations were. So could it possibly be that per their treaty they're not allowed to launch rockets of a certain size? And that would exceed. So therefore, Japanese came up with some very clever solution that involved a cannon.
That certainly sounds like a viable possibility. I have no way to research or fact check that at this moment.
I'm proud of you. You're not fact checking on the podcast.
Fact checking Runes podcasts. If I learned anything from Jeff Gersman and the Giant Bombcast, it's that fact checking Runes podcasts. But speaking of things that some fact checking might ruin, it's this week's Last Call. So the name of this story, the joke is the name of this story is much more interesting than the reality of it. Go for it, Sydney.
All right, so recently we've seen a wave of fashion execs moving into the tech world, and between that and wearable tech, it's pretty safe to say that our clothing and our technology are coming together in some unique ways. Now, some of the odder things that I've seen tend to come about when fashion meets social media, but tonight's last call may possibly take the cake in that arena. So tonight, ladies and gentlemen, for your last call pleasure, we give you the tweeting bra.
The what?
Yay.
The tweeting bra.
And there was much rejoicing.
So-
Yay,
No.
yay.
Yeah.
Yes. So when I first saw the phrase tweeting bra, my mind, of course, goes to all of the various Twitter dresses that have been in the news. And this has been over a course of time. Imogen Heap had one, I think, at the Grammys. I just Googled Twitter dress and found one that Nicole Scherzinger wore to some award. Yeah, there was one that Jimmy sent me an article a while back that was a part of a protest. Anyway, Twitter dresses. So basically, a lot of these tend to be dresses with LEDs built in that, people can tweet at the dress and it will tweets scroll across it. So I'm imagining a bra with tweets scrolling across it and wondering what on earth is the purpose of that, and people are going to wonder why your shirt is lighting up in strange ways. But that's not actually what this is. This is, in my opinion, actually weirder than that, because this is a bra that tweets every time it is removed, essentially.
This sounds like either the craziest stalker parent thing I have ever heard.
No. By craziest, you mean most brilliant.
So every time your daughter takes off her bra, it tweets.
Yeah. So it's got possibly a weird chastity belt angle.
Yep.
Or possibly, I don't know, people with strange hobbies. I don't know. Anyway, but so as you can see, there are a lot of strange interpretations and possibilities we can come up with as far as the use for this thing. But the actual purpose of this, first of all, this is not a mass market product. You're not going to be able to go into Victoria's Secret and buy a tweeting bra. Not widely available. This is a specially made item, which is a part of a campaign by Nestle Fitness to raise awareness, this being Breast Cancer Awareness Month.
Nestle is in the chocolate company?
Nestle is
That's
in
it's general food
it's
company,
Europe,
but
and
yes.
they do a lot more in Europe than we think of them doing as
Dannon
Americans.
yogurt, that's Nestle.
Oh, no, I know they do more, but that's just what I think of when I think of Nestle is chocolate. Anyways,
But
continue.
yes.
I always think of chocolate, though. Should surprise
I'm
nobody.
thinking of
Continue.
chocolate right now.
So
Chocolates.
this being the tail end of October is Breast Cancer Awareness Month.
I thought you were going to say Halloween because
It
of
is-
candy.
because of candy.
Focus.
After the
Focus.
So the purpose of the tweeting bra is to raise awareness about the importance of regular breast self-exams in screening for breast cancer prevention. So the bra is being worn by Greek actress Maria Bakodimou for 2 weeks. She's wearing it at the moment. You can follow the bra at Tweeting Bra. This is, of course, assuming you speak Greek. I went to the Tweeting Bra Twitter account, and I was really disappointed. I couldn't read any of the bra's tweets.
It was all Greek to you?
It was all Greek to me. They do have an English version of the website, because that's actually one of the things that the bra's account tweeted was, if this is all Greek to you, come look at my English website. And so on the website, they talk about, the importance of breast self-exams and procedure and all that stuff. So what do we think about this? Is this a clever campaign, a smart way to raise awareness, or really just the weirdest extension of the tech fashion merger that we've seen thus far?
This campaign is clever because it does actually have me thinking about Breast Cancer Awareness Month. So good job.
I'm going to go with all of the above.
But my biggest concern is not this actress, and they're finding a way to do something shocking and have it work well. What happens when the porn industry gets a handle on this technology? And that's really the problem, right?
Look, the porn industry got a handle on the internet years ago, and it still hasn't descended into the... Okay, well, maybe that was not the best argument. I rescind my previous points.
Look, porn... We always have this argument in technology that porn dawns technical winners, right? Porn chose VHS over Betamax. Porn helped choose Blu-ray over HD DVD. Porn helped innovate in streaming. And porn may now be pushing ahead into wearable tech. And porn may decide what wearable tech makes it and doesn't.
I just really wish I spoke Greek so I could know what the bra tweets.
What do bras
I'm
dream
assuming
of?
that it's, breast cancer statistics or...
No, I can't
know.
say that in any way that's going to be even remotely appropriate, so I'm not going to try.
And on that note, it's
call.
probably time to end. Thank you very much for joining us on this week's Tech's Last Call, late though it was. This is really Tech's first call. If you have any comments about our lateness...
Welcome to Monday, people.
It's Monday, or now it's Tuesday. It's Tuesday. Do another show today. If you have any comments about the show, please email us, podcast@techslastcall.com, at techslastcall on the Twitters, facebook.com/techslastcall, pinterest.com/techslastcall. However you find us, you'll be seeing us on the interwebs.
Tweet us with your undergarments.
Show title.
But no pictures.
No pictures.